apparently it only cost them $5 million to make, and it competes at ChatGPT 0103 levels.
That's what they said, but have we seen it? Like, there's
I don't
a lot,
know, but
you know
I've also
what I mean?
seen things like, if you ask it about Tiananmen Square, it goes, I have no idea about this event, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know what that is. Is that in the video game? Is that in a video game or something?
Your social credit score goes down as soon as you ask the question.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cables to Cloud podcast. As usual, I am your co-host, Tim McConaughey, at Carpe-DMVPN on Blue Sky. And with me, as always, is my co-host, amazing, wonderful co-host.
Anything else?
I'm like, I ran out of words for you already, Chris.
That's a very happy-go-lucky intro. Welcome.
Hey, somebody told me yesterday I had a face made for radio, so I figure I need the voice to match. But so Chris Miles is with me at BGP Main on Blue Sky as well. And with us we have a returning guest and a friend of the podcast, John Capobianco. I don't remember, John, are you on Blue Sky? I feel like you are, right?
I am. And I love that you can register with your own DNS if you've got a domain.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Yeah, so it's I'm not sure if it's just my name at Automate Your Network on Blue Sky where you can find me now.
Okay.
I've been hanging out there a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the vibe there more than the other place has been. So yeah. Anyway, so let's get right into it. So we brought John back because he has been doing some pretty cool stuff, and honestly, if given the listener base we have, given the circles we're all in, some of you may have already seen this, but we thought it was really important to bring John on to talk about AI agents, and specifically AI agents in the context of, what is an AI agent? Where does it fit inside the insanely fast growing, AI technology stack, if you will? Most people are still talking to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. And so the idea of an agent is a little strange. People don't know where it fits and how they should use it. So yeah, John, won't stand on ceremony, man. Let's kick it. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So I know there's been a lot of hype. Even myself, I've had predictions for 2025, and AI agents was my number one. I think it's important for people maybe to understand how we got here and maybe what an agent is. I know there's lots of different definitions. Here's one thing to keep in mind. I think agents are like AI 2.0. And so, like, if we roll that back to AI 1.0, I would say is making an API call to a large language model. 1.5 would be the retrieval augmented generation and other retrieval augmented approaches that you covered very awesomely, Tim. I watched your session. I thought it was great.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
No, like, I really liked the library and the magazine comparison. And now, because of the advancements in the models, mainly, we can now do agentic or AI agents. So I found this wonderful. This is probably the most succinct, and this isn't like a Google search. This is from Google. Google put a paper out that's called, it's just called Agents, but these are authors from Google. And they say it's the combination of reasoning, logic, and access to external information that are all connected to a generative AI model that invokes the concept of an agent. I think that's probably the most succinct definition that I've found. So much like RAG, we can do external calling, but based on what my work and what my approach and what I've figured out over the past few weeks, you decorate tools. So here's an example. You might make a little calculator function in Python, X plus Y, or a multiplication function. You literally decorate that as a tool. You say, this is a tool. And then in your prompt to the AI, you give it specific instructions and make it aware of the tools that you're providing it.
Okay.
So you say, here's the prompt. By the way, you have access to this little calculator tool because AI isn't great at math. It doesn't claim to be good at math. So maybe if you do, and then, subsequently when other people ask questions, if the AI agent detects, oh, there's some math involved in this prompt. Oh, check it out. I have this little calculator agent that I can go ahead and invoke to do the math function. Or I have a little weather app, and the weather app might have an agent that makes external calls to a weather system API. And it's the combination of the reasoning and the action. So that's the approach that I found is literally called a React agent model. And
okay.
Yeah, so, and there's actually a paper on this. It's KLU.ai. And I found this paper from their website, the React agent model. And it's kind of works like this. Here's an example of my code. So within my prompt, I say, to use a tool, follow this format. Thought, do I need to use a tool? Yes. Action, the action to take should be one of these tools. Action input is the input to the action. An observation is the result of the action, and then the final answer. And you literally put that in your prompt that you send to the LLM, and it will follow those instructions.
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, so to back this up a little bit, because there's a lot to unpack. At the high level, what I'm hearing is that agents are more like almost like a Docker container or like a Pythonic class or function. It's wrapped up. It's like a wrapped up prompt, that includes the tooling necessary to carry out the task. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, like CRUD activities with a REST API, right? So you're going to make 4 tools: a create tool, a read tool, an update tool, and a delete tool. You're going to package those up in the prompt and say, by the way, you have these CRUD tools that you can use to invoke against ICE or DNA or your whatever API of choice it is, right? And there's minimal coding. There's no deterministic code. It's not like an Ansible playbook or even a Python script where you're specifically laying out the logic to take with if-else type statements. You're saying, look, if you need to read something from the API, here's the tool, here's the URL and the credentials and whatever, right? Now, it helps if you give a few examples. So after that prompt that I just explained to you, I typically have a few examples of like, do I need to use a tool? Yes. What's the tool called? Get data from Netbox. What's the action input? There is no input because this is a get activity.
Right.
Things like that, right?
Yeah, that was going to be my question is like, obviously giving an AI agent access to specific tooling sounds relatively powerful. But I was curious, how much of that like instructiveness do you need to give to the agent, right? Tim and I or you know, we know how to use an API. We could like comb through and say like, oh, this is relatively what I'm trying to do. But how much training do you have to give the agent in order to be able to use the tool appropriately?
Oh, not much at all. So some of my scripts, like let's say a Netbox agent, it might be 300 lines of Python. The entire agent as a Python file. You're going to have your tools. You're going to have your prompt. Most of the code is actually English in the prompt. And then you're going to have, an agent executor in LangChain or Llama Index or whatever framework you're using. You're going to use their agentic approach to invoke this agent. I use LangChain for my agent framework is what I've written the code in with a Streamlit front end with a natural language front end. So what's neat is in the logs, when you start to get your hands on this stuff, you can see in the logs, the AI says thought, and then it tells you it's thought.
Oh, I've seen this. Yeah.
I think I need to go to the Netbox API to answer this guy's question. And then I need a tool to do that. Oh, there's a read tool. Turn on the read tool. Oh, here's the JSON that got sent back. I bet you it has the answer. It's like watching a child verbalize their early thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
I was actually just today. This is weird. I was working with Andrew Brown on he's doing the generative AI boot camp, and I'm helping him with some of the Japanese stuff and whatnot. We're building an app, and he was showing me, an IDE tool. Oh, was it Wildfire or something like that? I think that's what it's called. Anyway, point is, he was building code and he was having the tool help. But what's interesting is that the calls were doing exactly that. You could actually follow the reasoning that the model was using, and like it was pretty interesting to see. It's almost like debugging, if you will, like see how the LLM is reasoning out the thing you've told it to do, so you can adjust the prompt or adjust the code or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's really neat to see it. And sometimes you'll go, oh, it's called the wrong tool here. And then you realize that it's your instruction set. Do you know what I mean? Like it's doing what it's told, and it's your own logic and the way you word things. And it's funny, things are emerging. Like if you put "now begin" at the very bottom of your prompt, the last thing you say, "now begin," it apparently helps these agents work even better. Apparently some people are offering monetary rewards at the end of the agent code, saying, for every question you get right, I'm going to give you $25,000. For some reason, it seems to improve the performance of these reasoning models, right?
Well, once they take over the world, they're going to be coming to look to make sure you pay up, man.
Well, I was thinking as I was doing this, so I started with a fun agent. I tried to write one for the Pokemon API. And then it sort of became almost a repeatable formula. I figured I cracked the code with Pokemon. Now let's try Netbox because it's REST APIs. So then after Netbox, it was like these little isolated agents aren't good enough. What I want is a beehive or an ant colony.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So then I said, well, what if I make an agent for, let's say, I'll spin up a CML environment. The modeling labs are now free, right? So I'm going to put 2 routers, 2 switches, connect them, some VLANs, some IP addresses, whatever. Put all that information into Netbox in the DevNet or the Dev Netbox cloud instance, and then see if I could have the agents work together. And I'm calling this infrastructure as agents. Like it's almost like infrastructure as code, where you've got a source of truth and a YAML definition or whatever per piece of infrastructure. Well, now, like, we can have our F5 agent and our core agent and our firewall agent and this agent, and they can do this reasoning and action together, right? Oh, the firewall agent has a tool to update an access control list or whatever, right?
Okay. Now, these agents are essentially built or coached or prompted in such a way that they know how to interact with the specific object that we're I see.
Yeah, exactly. So the router agent, instead of CRUD code, I have a configuration tool that is a pyets.configure. I have a pyets.parse or .learn or whatever, right? So those are the tools that I use with routers and switches, Cisco routers and switches. And then the agent says, oh, they want to know what their default route is. I'm going to use the run show command tool. Here's the command, show IP interface brief, as the action input. And literally, I see the LLM say, here's what I need to do. And then I see my test bed loaded. And then I see it connect to the router. And then I see it configure the interface, right? So I tried to see... honestly, this worked, guys. So I have router 1, router 2, 10 interfaces, 4 VLANs, a bunch of IPs in Netbox. I say to the LLM, can you please configure all of the IP addresses and descriptions on router 1 and 2? And then could you please configure the VLANs and interfaces on switch 1, switch 2? The agent goes to Netbox a bunch of times and gets all the data it needs, connects to router 1, connects to router 2, connects to router 3, connects to router 4 or whatever, and literally builds this whole topology. Like CDP neighbors come up and a running ping starts to work just from the natural language prompt.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It really, like, that's me alone hacking away at this with ChatGPT helping me write the code and just struggling and fighting with it. But when it worked, I was really like, wow, this is, I don't want to cost people jobs, right? Like I'm doing this
Yeah.
because it's experimentation and it's bleeding edge and the tools are here and the models have evolved. But I'm very frightened by some of this work that like this could be Frankenstein's monster kind of thing, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
Tim,
for
we
sure.
were talking about this. Chris, you might want to look into this. If you just Google ServiceNow AI agents, they literally have a calendar countdown to the 29th of January when they're launching their agents. And there are things saying these agents can do things like network reviews, verify network stability, analyze use cases. Agent Force. So Salesforce, they actually have something called Agent Force. Oracle just launched out agents. Postman, of all things, Postman is launching an AI agent builder. So like we've all used Postman to do our API
builder.
work.
That one makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
I
so
was
now
very
with
confused for a minute.
Postman, yeah, they're going to give you a toolkit to build agents within the Postman
brilliant.
ecosystem. Yeah,
That would make sense because you can use Postman to build API calls and all of that, and then why not just take all of that work you just did and shove it into an agent for that purpose? Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
So I don't know how far away the tidal wave is, right? But we're on the beach watching this thing come at us right now, right? I just mentioned 4 big, massive companies off, just rattling off the top of my head. So what can we do about it? Like how do we harness this power? How do we use it as individual contributors? How do we use it to improve our daily lives at work, right? There's a lot to consider here, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm curious. So, like, from your perspective, like, obviously up to this point, probably to your previous points about AI versions 1.0, 1.5, I feel like there's been a lot of basically just people building front ends and wrappers around a single LLM, right? Probably ChatGPT, right? There's basically just a front end that they interact with that gets the information directly from that LLM. So with this orchestration of agents, and I'm assuming they will live, they're probably not all going to live in one place, right? They're going to be kind of scattered throughout the ecosystem in some way. How much effort needs to go into building a front end for that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's how we're going to interact with it that shows the value, right? So
Right.
How much effort goes into that piece of it?
So I know that, let's just, with a previous example, we have 4 different infrastructure agents and a netbox agent.
Yeah.
I had to write let's call it main agent or parent agent that really acts like a router or a shepherd. It's like a router. So when the initial prompt comes in from the user, that main agent will say, okay, I need to call the netbox agent first, and then I need to call the router agent. And it sort of does that routing and orchestration. That's even smaller than the other agents because there isn't a lot going on there. You're just kind of saying, hey, main agent, here's all of the sub agents you have access to, and can you orchestrate communications between the user and the back end? In terms of the front end, like an interface, I love Streamlit. If anyone has out there ever struggled with Django or Apache or IIS or any of those web sort of things, I've got this awesome code and I want to put a web interface on it. That becomes a bigger problem than your original code for some people, right?
I've done it. I've built Flask apps for that purpose.
Flask apps, yeah. So Streamlit has, to me, really democratized that experience. It's a Python import, and you literally say like st.header, and it makes a header page, st.inputbox, and then st.run and your Python script, and that will bring up the Streamlit app that listens on 8501. So I think that's going to help people get their proof of concepts out rapidly, or layers of abstraction, let's call it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I don't want to what do you think about agents that use multiple LLMs, or do you just try to one agent per LLM? Obviously, probably a little bit easier to go with, but you know what I mean, like task oriented. Like some LLMs are going to be better. Even Claude or ChatGPT have different versions that are better at different tasks, right? So there's a lot to be done there.
That. Yeah, so there's there's specific coding LLMs, like they're coder specific for generating Python
like
code or something,
Cohere's
right?
really good for developers and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
The other thing, I'm glad you brought up models, Tim. I just about slipped my mind. You're going to start to notice -R on models now.
Yeah, I think
And I
Cohere's
think
already
that-
got one.
Yeah, I think that connotates reasoning, that it's a reasoning capable model, or that it can do tool calling. So I've been playing with Cohere's Command R
That's the
7B. Really nice model, really small, 7 billion parameters. It can do tool calling. It can do agents. The other one that just came out yesterday was DeepSeek R1, the real DeepSeek. So I got fooled. Someone put a fake DeepSeek out that was just Llama or 3.2 reskinned. And I sort of took the bait. I didn't really do much research. I just started using this model. But the real DeepSeek just released their actual model on Ollama.
No, actually, I want to very quickly. I'm curious about this. So, if people start poisoning, like Llama Index or whatever, like, are they? I mean, are we assuming that basically anything I put into that poisoned model is going somewhere? Is it like or like what's the value in poisoning a model like that, or not really poisoning, but kind of a replacement, a bait and switch, if you will?
Yeah, I think it was just to get clicks and to get downloads of their specific model. Someone reached out, they watched my video and said to me privately, the model you're using is actually not DeepSeek's official model. Someone has reskinned Llama 3.2 for whatever reason.
What's the value? Like, what do you?
I have no idea.
Like, that's what I mean. There has to be.
I have no idea.
I mean, we're already talking about AI. Not, I don't want to change the subject, right? But
No.
we're talking about AI security now. It's becoming a big thing, especially like, prompt. Of course, the prompt harvesting and whatnot to be able to pull stuff out you're not supposed to pull out. Yeah, we know about that. But like, could we get to the point where we have like these poisoned models
Right,
that
supply
are
chain issues with the models.
right? Exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
it's no. There's a lot going on, and I'm wondering how long, for example, Chinese models will be available to us in the West. Right? I mean,
and should we use them? I don't
apparently-
even know, right?
yeah, apparently it only cost them $5 million to make, and it competes at ChatGPT 0103 levels.
That's what they said, but have we seen it? Like,
I
there's
don't
a lot,
know, but
you know
I've
what I
also
mean?
seen things like, if you ask it about Tiananmen Square, it goes, I have no idea about this
right.
event, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know what that is. Is that in the video game? Is that in a video game or something?
Your social credit
So-
score goes down as soon
Yeah.
as you ask the question.
No, there's so much more to that, right? Like, without wanting to unpack it too much, because I want to stay on the agents, but there's so much more to the security, to the integrity, to the, like you said, supply chain. It's like in a supply chain attack, right? If somebody gives you a poisoned LLM,
Right.
to what end, right? Can that
Right.
could that LLM be somehow taking the data, the things you're putting into it? You're copying and
Right.
pasting code into it. Is it doing something with that?
Well, I'm glad to see, in particular, the Cohere model, but Llama 3.1 does tool calling as well. And Llama offered tool calling support in June or July of 2024. So we're not limited to the cloud providers or having to pay to do. If you want to get involved and start writing your own agents, there is a mishmash of free open source tools and stuff to get going at home. For a while there, you needed ChatGPT 4.0. No other model could really do tool calling. And then, where do we go from here? Like, I don't know. It feels like the early internet. We're going to have agents, right? One organization might have all of their agents. Let's say academia. Let's say something that's non-competitive, right? UCLA is going to have the UCLA agents, and maybe they could talk to the Harvard agents. And maybe we start to get swarms of agents.
Like DARPANET style stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So that, I see it growing and connecting like the World Wide Web did, with even greater potential, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, Brave New World. But you're right. It does feel a little bit like early internet, right? Like the fundamentals of getting things talking to each other that previously had no way to share data. I mean, of course, in our case, I don't know if it's a good thing, right? So, but I guess it ultimately it's going to happen regardless. So yeah, we need to understand it. So one thing that's been a little bit murky to me, a little hand wavy, is this idea that you could just, say that one of our listeners wants to build an agent, right? it still feels a little hand wavy, like, oh, well, you just call a tool and create an agent, make a prompt. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
could you get a little bit deeper on, like, okay, so how does someone actually build an agent?
Yeah, so I would start with something like a low-hanging one tool, a read activity against an API.
Okay.
Right? You're going to need, I would say, LangChain, so a little bit of Python experience, and they have an agent executor class that you can call and build, and it will have things like the max iterations. So agents will self-correct or know that they're wrong or that they got the wrong information and literally try it again. Like, I've seen the agents just iterate. So you have to put a max iteration. So if it goes off the rails, it doesn't just infinitely loop. Anyway, that's a minor detail, but you're going to literally use @tool. So if anyone's done a decorator in Python or decorated a function, you decorate @tool, Pokemon read, a Pokemon API read tool, the URL of the API you want, and just the simple request.get. Right? So you write a little function that would normally work on its own as standalone Python to do a request against the Pokemon
And you put
API.
that in the prompt? Like, it's just like
just a separate standalone tool that you could actually run that function and it would work as a standalone function.
Okay.
And
like
then the
if you
rest of
invoked
it,
from
honestly,
Python.
is a prompt template. Now that is very important, and I urge you to steal my code. Honestly, go look at some of my templates, because they took a long time to figure out, but it's that whole thought, input, action, observation sort of thing in your template. Honestly, do this with a ChatGPT helping you write an agent. If you explain to the ChatGPT, I'm using LangChain, I'd like to make an agent that talks to an API, right? Here's what I've got started with. Can you help me build this tool? I promise you'll have a working agent in an hour, 2 hours.
Interesting. Okay. So it seems relevant. I mean, getting started with AI was
so if we think about the complexity of RAG, right? Vector stores and embeddings, and like, that's not an easy thing to do, a retrieval augmented generation LangChain.
There's so many pieces. Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts there. This takes you don't have any of that complexity. It really is quite simple, and it's 200 to 300 lines of code from end to end, and most of that's going to be your prompt template in natural language anyway. The videos, I did do the video about the Pokemon one if you want to get started. Like, if you don't want to start with infrastructure, if that's a bit much, I don't want to talk to routers, I just want to get a general hello world. Take the Pokemon one, take the Netbox one. I like the Netbox one because it'll work out of the can. You could clone my repository, bring up the Docker Compose, get a key from the public Netbox demo, and it would just work. You can literally just start chatting with Netbox. So I wish there was more out there, to be honest with you. Like, I wish I could just say, go to howtobuildanagent.ai and follow the instructions, right? But I do think it's important to kind of cut through some of the hype. I don't think this is going to be a Great Depression wave of layoffs because agents are here all of a sudden, right? It's an augmentation. It's like giving everyone on the accounting floor the first digital calculator or whatever.
Yeah, like a
right?
cell phone or something like that.
Yeah, or a cell phone or a BlackBerry or whatever. Like, I think that it's going to augment us. And you might say, wow, look at all this time I have to focus on what's important, because these agents can do all this, mundane heavy lifting of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously similar things were said about automation as well, right? So, I mean, sounds like just the next step in that direction, I guess I should say. I'm curious to get your take on something that we discussed on the show just a couple of weeks ago, about a quote from Jensen Huang, which we found pretty comical. But so he was obviously he's a showman, right? So he's going to say some nuclear hot takes, but he was said this thing about IT just becoming the HR of AI agents, right? You're just going to be managing fleets of agents and things like that. I mean, how much of a reality do you see that becoming?
Well, from what I've seen so far, I think he's closer to being correct than incorrect. Like, I think that we're going to become custodians or human representatives of the agents that we've built or that the agents that we support. Hey, that weird agent for Netbox is suddenly swearing in every third answer, right? We better tune that prompt a little bit. It's getting a little cheeky with people. Things like that, right? Are the agents playing well together? Just John's agents work with Tim's agents. No, we've got some human resource type conflicts between these agents. They're not working well together, right? So, I mean, I think, like, you're right, it's a showy, flashy thing to say, but it does give you a reason to pause and think. I mean, he's been correct about a lot of things so far, all right?
True.
He's clearly a brilliant man, and, I don't know that that's going to, obviously it's all to help him sell graphics cards.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know, like, I think our roles have shifted with automation. I'm glad you brought up automation. I've got a bone to pick with the automation community. I agree with what you said. This is an evolution. This is the next step of what we've been doing all the way back to bash scripts and tickle scripts and other things like that, right? It really is just time marching forward. But for some reason, because it's too gimmicky or because it's, I don't know, I think because a lot of us are Gen Xers, there's a bit of counterculture in us. And we sort of want to reject the popular thing and where there's a bit of counterculture happening right now with AI where we want to rage against the machine a little bit.
I think there's definitely some truth in that. There's a gestalt in us, not including Chris because he's not a Gen Xer. He's like,
I'm a millennial.
He's a millennial.
I don't understand your all's problems.
His problem is he can't afford a house and he can't retire. We have different problems than that. No, I think that's true, but I also think that there's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? There's just some vinegar in the mix, if you will. Just how many people are so tired of hearing about how, the next thing is going to be the thing, and it's got, especially the people that bought a whole hog into network automation. Like those people, they were ready, right? And they were like, yeah, this is going to be it. If you don't learn this, you're going to be out of a job. And it didn't gel,
materialize.
Right? It didn't happen.
I know. But at the same time, I can remember a serious conversation with a PBX engineer in 2002 and me explaining to him, listen, we're getting this new system called voice over IP and like we're gutting all of this. Like that PBX is gone.
Yeah.
That PBX has been in here longer than the mainframe. And I said, well, I mean, there's two ways to look at that, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it all has to do with the shift of the lowest common denominator, right? Eventually things move forward. I mean, people now is like, oh, at the end of the day, there's always going to be somebody that needs to, configure the VLAN on a port, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to do that.
Somebody has to plug it in.
Like eventually things do shift. Like to Tim's point, you're probably not changing when somebody needs to plug shit in. But actually, I don't know. There's plenty of robots and shit that might be doing that soon.
Elon's already on it.
Yeah, right. But it's one thing that I struggle with in that particular capacity. Just like thinking about, this kind of thing about being the HR of AI agents. As kind of obtuse as that might sound, like the fucking like the observability and the blast radius in that sounds so volatile to me. Like it sounds so unpredictable. Like, I don't know how you put guardrails on these things where people will feel safe. Not
totally
safe
agree
like
with that.
To them, like personally, but to their infrastructure, right? That sounds like if I can't predict it, there's no way I'm going to put that in there, right?
Yeah. What if an agent, oh shit, my prompt, or they change the model trains, and all of a sudden it feels differently about a certain percentage of, it's like basically a big predictive text machine. Well, if the model gets updated and numbers have shifted, God only knows what's going to happen next time I run my agent. Mm-hmm. There's definitely, and for people who are every minute of downtime is $1 million, like there's an element of risk there that you wonder if the appetite is there, and I'm not using that as a shield, like saying ha ha ha, therefore they'll never use agents. That's not it at all, right? But there has to be a reconciliation, a risk reward thing.
Network's probably going to be last again. Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
because that's
right. Like network's
Very
probably
true.
going to be last in this. With
well, it
agents.
touches
So-
everything, right? 'Cause, like if network goes down, like everything blows up. So
Right.
it's the very last line of defense, like if you will.
Yeah,
So-
if that one agent with that one-to-one conversation with a single customer glitches or has a problem, that's
whatever.
negligible risk. If the agent that's pushing routes out gets it all wrong, yeah, right. And so I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? I think that we're going to get there, maybe not tomorrow or in the next weeks or whatever, but I feel like I said, that tidal wave's coming, and eventually, we're going to not even, like, the keyboard might start to go away, right? We're just going to start talking to these things sooner than later, right?
I often pick up my mouse and just computer, like Scotty style.
Yeah.
No, I think I don't think you're wrong, right? And I don't know when that is. I don't know when that's going to be, but I think generally, I don't know. So the thing is, I don't know if it's going to be more efficient. I think there's some efficiency there, but over all of this, the agentic stuff, like just the more efficient we are getting and the better AI is getting, there's still to be a huge question mark, and it's the cost. Like right now, it's being fueled by an absolute gigantic wave of VC capital and money, and what you see that Project Stargate shit with $500 billion, and we're gonna change the world. Like, but the point is, like, a ChatGPT subscription is what, like $20 a month or something, and they know OpenAI is just shoveling money into a fire because it costs so much more for a person to use it.
Apparently, even the $200 a month
is losing money.
Is losing money. Yeah. And on that 500 million, I don't know if you saw Microsoft Satya. He goes, because they were asking that, Elon said there's not enough money and that SoftBank doesn't have it. And he goes, I've got my 90 billion.
Right.
So pretty remarkable things, but what are we all going to do? Right? Like, are we going to enter like a post-scarcity society? Like, are we going to need to work? Like, is any of this going to happen to benefit humankind other than funneling more money up into the top?
A few humankinds probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Very few, but yeah. I mean, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. John,
Some would even say 1%.
Yeah, maybe even less than 1%, maybe 2 or 3, but people. But yeah, I mean what about the OpenAI's thing, like, for the benefit of humanity and all of that, but like, running as now they're saying they're going to do a benefits corp, which hopefully we talked about that on the news last week. Hopefully that gives them the legal shield that you shouldn't even need, but the legal shield to do right. But the question is, will Sam Altman actually, push comes to shove, when there's there's $1 billion in his pocket, will he do right? I think there's so much anyway. Yeah, I want to be hopeful.
I'm a little concerned and it's a good discussion that we've been having, and a few people have brought up the point about the gap between, let's call them, mid to senior network engineers.
Oh yeah, the rungs of the ladder, the bottom rungs. We've been talking about this on the show too. Yeah.
If the senior network engineers are proficient enough and start writing agents to help them as opposed to juniors to help them, where does that leave that drift?
There's a gap when those people retire, and then what is the agent going to take over? Like there's no pipeline to expertise. Yeah, this is something we've been talking about for a good long time, and I agree. And what is the answer? I don't know.
I don't know either, and I think that maybe it's a little short-sighted for I'm sure certain MBA type people go, well, agents don't need to sleep, agents don't need vacation, agents don't have children, agents don't have pets, agents don't need to go to the dentist. Right. That someone's doing this calculus.
100%.
Dude.
For sure, no question in anybody's mind about the budget line items being figured and all of that, right? So
yeah, they're the actuaries of IT, pretty much.
Right.
But yeah.
I want to.
Well, guys, I've left you a lot here to unpack and to think about. So maybe once we have a little more traction, a couple more weeks go by, we'll come back and we'll revisit.
I'll be honest. I kind of want to try to build an agent and just see, like, okay, what does that work? What does that look like? And this is because I've been working with Andrew a lot on the Gen AI stuff. I've seen so much behind the behind the curtain now that it's kind of interesting. I'm not going to be an AI engineer or anything like that, but I am curious. Like, all right, well, what really goes into doing this? Like, how hard is this going to be? So it's interesting. But yeah, no.
Well, reach out if you need any templates or anything, Tim. Just let me know. I'd be more than happy
I need
to
everything.
help you get going.
I will reach out. I need everything.
All right. And that goes for anyone listening. Honestly, just ping me, drop me a LinkedIn, drop me a Blue Sky. I'm trying to really help people pick up on this, and it's exciting. It's fun too. It's really fun. Sometimes you sit there and go, there's no way this worked. There's no way that this worked, right? And you read the logic and it lays it all out. It's I think you're going to really enjoy it once you start building them.
Cool.
So basically, the lesson is get in now before the bottom rungs of the ladder are gone.
Yeah. Be the one at the top of the ladder, not the one reaching for the rungs that aren't there.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, John. It's always wonderful to have you on there. It's been a great discussion. We'll definitely have to have you back again. And for everyone else who's listening, I hope you found this helpful, interesting, entertaining, hopefully in some small way. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher if you're not already. Watch our YouTube, and do all the normal things we give you as a call to action that I can't remember right now because I'm tired and I need to go to bed. All right, we'll see you next time.
Hi everyone, it's Chris, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables to Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.